Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we discuss the Imperial Saint Celestine, the untold sacrifice she performs across the Imperium. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the short story Celestine Revelation by author Andy Clark. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself, without spoilers. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Of all the factions I love to discuss within the 40k universe, it's hard to deny the Adeptus Sororitas haven't grown on my heart over the recent years. In a galaxy so beset by turmoil, so immersed in darkness and war, with demons literally bestriding the galaxy, now more than ever those moments of light, of faith, are needed. The belief that the God Emperor is there, and he still protects. And for all the vaunted status of the Adeptus Astartes, none really represent that more than the Sisters of Battle. No matter what embodiment of evil chaos throws at the people of mankind, their faith holds true. A figurative and literal beacon of the Emperor's protection. And of all the great beacons, the shining symbols that the sisterhood provides, there is surely none greater than the legendary Saint Celestine herself. Prayer and devotion is one thing, but witnessing an actual saint of the Emperor is quite another. Celestine burns with the Emperor's power. She is his light, his will, and through her the ruinous powers feel his defiance. Now, while Celestine's name may be intertwined with grand campaigns and major systems, the truth is, like any servant of the Emperor, she is fighting endlessly across the Imperium's breadth. Wherever the people of mankind have need, Celestine is there. On world after world she has fought tirelessly, from holy terror to the darkest reaches of Imperium Nihilus. And one of the best examples of this unknown and unheralded service I was pleasantly surprised to find in the short story Celestine Revelation. Now here we see what could be one of countless Imperial worlds currently within the galaxy, the tendrils of chaos once more ensnaring a world within its grasp. However, what I found particularly interesting about this story is, instead of the usual Celestine appearing in a moment of glory, or maybe even before the truth of the enemy is revealed, is that we actually see Celestine at the end of what's clearly been a long and arduous campaign. The world has been ruined by the forces of chaos, ablaze from fire and scarred by war. The people are exhausted, holding out at what appears to be their final bastion. There are corpses of their comrades and friends piled before the walls of their city. The few defenders that remain of the Militarum are manning the trenches, and before them all, and the gates of the city, stands Celestine, now far from the untarnished golden angelic symbol. This Celestine is exhausted, praying to the God Emperor herself for the strength to fight on. It's a glimpse of the saint we rarely, if ever, get to see. And there's a very key line where she reflects it's hard to feel the Emperor's presence. It comes across as most likely due to the sheer devastation around her, the world becoming more akin to a demon planet than one of the Imperium. But I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps the location of the world plays a factor as well. Perhaps the world is across the Great Rift, where we know not only the Emperor's light struggles to reach, but in turn too, So many of the worlds suffer the same fate as this, simply becoming prey to the forces of chaos. And it really highlights how much of a struggle that fight for survival is, because if the saint herself can barely feel the Emperor's presence, his power, how on earth is the ordinary person of the world going to feel? The militarum soldier, the simple citizen. It's an interesting take on the success of chaos. Perhaps it's not all about turning those from the Emperor's light, but maybe more so simply blocking it out. It's also revealed that Celestine is alone of the sisterhood, that every one of her sisters upon the world has been slain. You have to think that would have a dramatic effect not only on morale, but also to that reach of the Emperor. We've heard how worlds of the orders across the rift have become beacons of salvation, that they defy the encroaching darkness against all the odds and reason. If anything, it's become more and more clear over the recent years that the presence of faith in the Emperor is a defining factor in the Imperium's victories. So maybe, as seen here, with the loss of the sisterhood, that powerhouse of faith, that maybe that somehow reflects in the Emperor's ability to reach the people. Now, inevitably the final chaos assault comes, Celestine doing what she can to inspire the remaining defenders. And for me, in what is a really eye-opening bit of insight, unbelievably Celestine is filled with doubt. The Imperial Saint doubting that they can prevail. But of course she fights on, hoping if her words of hope had no effect, then maybe her actions can. And it's not long before she's confronted by the warlord of the Chaos Horde, Bloodlord Arnok, who is a traitor space marine elevated to Demon Prince. At 3 times the height of Celestine herself, he's something more akin to a bloodthirster. Now, despite her tiredness, Celestine is no slouch, and she inflicts a wound, plunging her sword into his torso. But it's just not enough, and Arnok soon begins to take the advantage, shattering her winged jetpack, forcing her to the ground, before wounding her himself with his axe to the shoulder. And the duel goes from bad to worse, with Celestine struggling to hold her ground. But as she does so, she begins to see flashes of visions. And this is at the heart of why I wanted to discuss this today. We know the Emperor, or at least some semblance of his power, speaks with Celestine via visions, with Celestine interpreting his intentions through what she sees, as in the novel Shroud of Darkness, for example, where she ended up assisting the Alpha Legion warband. However, here, the vision Celestine has seems to be a memory instead, a notion of her dying as a sister Repentia, before somehow being reborn in the Emperor's light. There's no real details, and Celestine is left trying to interpret it as much as we are, seemingly not knowing if it's a memory or not. Another vision comes of Celestine visiting the shrine of St. Catherine, emerging after a day blessed in her armour, raising up into the golden light, hearing the choir ringing in her ears. It certainly appears to be the moment of her ascension, her truly becoming the saint of the Emperor, the death that saw her reborn in the Emperor's power, and her true birth as the Emperor's will. A third final vision is of her at the site of a fallen cathedral, destroyed by the forces of chaos, and this fills her with the unbridled hatred, the force that every trace of chaos within the galaxy must be eradicated. Again, all very different to the usual instructions, so to speak. Undoubtedly there is a meaning to interpret, but you get the sense it's a far different one to usual. Something clearly more personal. Something that speaks to the heart of Celestine herself. And we perhaps get the answer to this after, as Celestine lies broken and shattered upon the ground, hearing the forces of chaos overrunning the desperate defenders. She begins to hear a voice. She felt the agony awaiting her within the broken remains of her mortal shell. Instinctively, she shied away. Then, out of nowhere, Celestine felt a hand take hers. Its touch was faint as gossamer. "Stay," said a small voice, little more than an exhalation of breath against her ear. "Don't go back. They'll hurt you. Stay, please." "They need me," said Celestine. Distantly she heard the screams of dying soldiers, the gibbering of demons, the brazen laughter of Arnok. His shadow loomed over her, one axe raised for the decapitating strike. "It will be over quickly," said the voice. The touch upon her hand became a tug. "Stay." Celestine knew that she had met this manifestation many times. She knew also that it was some part of herself. It was the part that wanted to stop fighting, to cast aside the bargain that she had struck with the Emperor. The part desperate to at last be free of the impossible weight of others' need for her divinity, even if it meant giving in, giving up. For me, this is a remarkably human glimpse into the truth behind the image of the Emperor's Saint. The weary, exhausted, tired woman she is. The one who has lived countless lifetimes of service. Too many lifetimes of service. And yet still fights on. At first I thought it was some temptation of chaos. The ruinous powers calling to the doubts that even a saint must have. That here in this moment of defeat, as she lay broken, battered and bruised, the ruinous powers have come to try and turn the prized Emperor's servant. And hey, maybe that is very much the case. It's certainly right up the ruinous powers street, to prey on the doubts of others. The reality is we can't say for certain, but you don't get the impression that that is how Celestine sees it. She sees this voice as the simple truth, that part of her that is simply just exhausted, that's just had enough. The part of the woman she used to be, that maybe somehow still remains within this golden symbol of sainthood. So therein lies the answer to why she was receiving such personal visions in the moments before. As Arnok was delivering wounds and breaking her bones, it wasn't instructions that Celestine received. It was support. It was the reinvigorating of her faith. The reaffirming of why she does this, why she performs such sacrifice, over and over again. Not just in his name, not just in the protection of his people, but in an outright hatred of the ruinous powers. That somehow, some way, the Emperor knew the message she needed to see. He knew that part of her spirit that needed to be fired, to burn away those doubts, for Celestine's sacrifice to continue. And so, as Celestine lays there, she realizes the people that depend on her. She realizes that her Emperor needs her, and she realizes that she must be that symbol of light, until every trace of chaos is burned from the galaxy. And with that realization, the Emperor's light fires. Here on this insignificant backwater world that could be anywhere within the Imperium of man, completely immersed and surrounded by chaos, the Emperor protects. Lifted into the air with golden light, Celestine's wounds are purged from her body. Golden wings sprout from her back to replace her shattered jetpack, and the demons burn from his power. She can feel the hearts of every defender blazing at the sight of her. It's an absolutely goosebump-raising moment, and I cannot recommend the short story enough. It's made all the more powerful for seeing those doubts beforehand. Seeing the strength of spirit that Celestine has. The sacrifices that she must go through. That despite having given everything, despite having died 100 times over, Celestine just will not give in. No matter how much that former part of herself may want to. And of course with that, with Arnok's skin burning from the mere presence of the Emperor's power, Celestine just absolutely annihilates him. What a sight for your average guardsman. You just know that's a tale that would be told 1,000 times over. In city after city, in country after country, world after world. The image of the reborn saint would be passed on from one person to another. It's no wonder within this darkest of times that faith is stronger than ever across the Imperium, because for all that death, for all that tragedy, the people of the Imperium can truly see now, on battlefields in ever increasing number, that the God Emperor truly does protect. For me, so often we focus on that symbol that Saint Celestine has become, that we so too often forget what she herself must go through. And so I was really taken aback by this short story, giving us a glimpse into the sacrifice that Celestine makes, the struggle that she must go through. Yes, she is blessed by the Emperor. Yes, she fights in his name. But at the heart of it, somehow in some way, she is still human. She still has doubts, feelings, emotions. She has sacrificed herself countless times over, and continues to do so. In being thrown from one war zone to another, from one world feeling the wrath of chaos, to another surrounded by death, how could this not take an emotional toll? And so to see that here, I really think it gives a whole new take on Celestine for me. It really in many ways makes her more badass than ever, knowing she does feel those struggles, that she is not immune to them. She does have those moments where part of her simply can't go on. And yet, she does. She continues to fight, in the Emperor's name. In showing the humanity that still beats within the heart of Celestine. For me, undoubtedly, she's become stronger than ever. But as always everyone, what do you think? What do you feel of the doubts that exist within Celestine herself? Was this the attempts of chaos trying to sway the Emperor's servant? Was it the simple truth of the woman that resides within? Someone who is so simply exhausted, who just doesn't want to go on? Or maybe was it a combination of the two? In knowing that Celestine is no different from the rest of the servants of the Emperor, that she fights on world after world, most of the time unknown and unheralded, does it give you an extra level of respect for the Emperor's will? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. With that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.